Mercer had never imagined that a simple volunteer assignment would place him in front of an alien council that filled an entire hall with their towering presence. He stepped inside the grand chamber of all with slow, unsure steps, feeling every heartbeat echo inside his chest like a drum. The shining stone floor reflected the bright colors of the alien women surrounding him, scales of gold, violet, and emerald, shimmering as they moved. Their eyes, large and focused, watched him with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his entire life. The moment he entered, whispers filled the air. Their voices were sharp yet melodic, like wind passing through crystal wind chimes. "Is that him?" one alien woman whispered. "The human?" another asked, tilting her head, her tail flicking. "He looks fragile," a third murmured. "How can he endure even a single cycle?" Swallowed hard, he had been told he would be demonstrating normal human endurance for a research study, something harmless, something safe. He had not expected an audience, and he had definitely not expected the looks he was receiving now, half amusement, half pity. Before he could ask the officials about the misunderstanding, a loud strike echoed across the chamber. The tall doors sealed behind him, locking with a deep metallic echo that seemed to dismiss his doubt entirely. At the far end of the hall, the high matron of all rose from her seat. She was stunning in a way that made forget how to breathe. Her crest shimmered with silver light. Her scales were a deep ocean blue, and her gold eyes carried a sharp intelligence. She regarded him with calm authority. "Human Mercer," she said, her voice filling the hall with effortless power. "You have come to our world seeking cooperation and peaceful exchange. In response, you have been chosen to partake in our honored tradition, the trial of resonance." Blinked, "I am sorry, the what?" The aliens in the hall whispered more intensely. A few looked almost excited, while others looked genuinely worried for him. The high matron raised one hand, quieting the entire hall instantly. "The trial of resonance," she explained, "is a measure of connection, discipline, and endurance, a test that our strongest warriors prepare for years to complete." Her gaze sharpened. "You will enter the arena and maintain contact with the resonance conduit for a full duration of the cycle, without breaking, without stepping out." His heart felt like it dropped straight through the stone floor. "I didn't sign up for anything dangerous," he said quietly. The high matron's expression softened only slightly. "This is not a test of violence, but it is a test few can complete, not even all our own." One alien woman hissed softly, "He cannot do it." "He is too small," another added. "He will collapse before the first pulse," a third said with a pitying tone. Clenched his jaw, feeling a burn of frustration rise in his chest. Maybe he was small compared to them. Maybe he wasn't trained like their warriors. But Earth had given him something else: stubbornness, heart, and a refusal to embarrass his whole planet just because he got scared. He stood. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. The high matron looked at him with a calm but heavy gaze. "Your refusal would not dishonor you, but it would mark your world as unprepared for deeper cooperation. Our people value strength, not of body, but of spirit. If the first human we meet steps away from a challenge, it will echo across generations." Felt the weight of billions suddenly resting on his shoulders. That tiny blue planet he came from, always overshadowed, always underestimated, now depended on him to show that humans were not weak or forgettable, stood at the edge of the arena, staring at the crystalline conduit that stretched before him like a living beam of light. It pulsed gently, almost breathing, and he could feel the hum of energy vibrating through the floor. Every instinct told him to step back, to turn and run. Yet the weight of his responsibility anchored him firmly in place. Beside him, a all-woman approached. She was tall, her scales glimmering violet in the bright crystal light, and her golden eyes softened with what seemed almost like sympathy. "I am," she said in a melodic tone. "I will guide your first cycle. If at any moment it becomes too much, signal me. I will stop it. No shame comes from ending early." Nodded, swallowing hard. His throat felt dry, and his hands trembled slightly as he reached out to touch the conduit. The moment his fingers made contact, a shock of energy rippled through his body. It wasn't painful exactly, but it made his nerves sing and his heart jump. A wave of unfamiliar sensations surged through him, an odd mixture of vertigo, warmth, and a strange focus he had never experienced before. "Breathe," advised softly. "Feel the resonance, do not fight it, let it flow through you." Took a deep breath and forced his mind to calm. Each pulse of the conduit seemed to probe his thoughts, testing his concentration, his endurance, and even his emotions. Memories he had buried long ago bubbled to the surface. Failures in school, arguments with friends, the first time he had lost someone he loved. For a terrifying moment, he thought the energy was trying to break him from the inside out. But then he remembered why he was here. Not just for himself, not just for survival, but for the humans watching from billions of miles away. If he faltered, Earth would seem weak, insignificant, unworthy of interstellar respect. He clenched his teeth and focused on the pulse, letting it pass through him instead of fighting against it. Minutes or perhaps hours passed, though he had no way of measuring time. Each wave of resonance pushed him to the edge. His legs shook, his arms quivered, and sweat ran down his forehead. The crowd of alien spectators remained silent, their faces a mixture of curiosity, awe, and doubt. Could feel their judgment, their amazement, their disbelief, all pressing down like invisible weights. Halfway through the cycle, the energy wave struck harder than before. Stumbled backward, almost letting go, but's voice reached him, calm and encouraging. "Focus on your center, remember your strength." He gritted his teeth, planted his feet, and adjusted his grip. Slowly, steadily, he regained control. The final pulse approached, a surge that threatened to overwhelm everything he had held together. His vision blurred, his muscles burned, but still he did not release the conduit. He remembered his mother's words from years ago. Strength is not in never falling, but in rising each time. Rising, he realized, could also mean enduring, without letting go, without giving up. When the last wave of energy passed, exhaled deeply, feeling the tension in his body melt just slightly. He was trembling, drenched in sweat, exhausted beyond belief, but he was still holding the conduit. He had completed the first cycle. The hall erupted in murmurs. Some aliens stared in disbelief. Eyes widened, her mouth slightly open. You have completed a cycle," she whispered, without releasing contact. Forced a tired smile, trying to hide how much it had nearly broken him. "That's one," he managed to say, his voice shaking but proud. The crowd's whispers grew louder, a mixture of shock and admiration. "No human has ever done this before." "You have changed everything we believed about outsiders," another whispered. Sank to one knee, feeling the adrenaline ebb and leave him weak. Despite the pain and exhaustion, a sense of pride warmed him from within. He had faced the unknown, endured what no one expected him to, and survived. For the first time in this alien world, humanity had earned respect, not through technology, not through numbers, but through sheer determination. Knelt beside him, her hand hovering near his shoulder. "You have impressed us beyond measure," she said softly. "And this is only the beginning." Nodded, breathing heavily. "Then, let's see what the next cycle brings." The first cycle was led to a small chamber away from the arena. The walls shimmered faintly, reflecting soft, calming light that seemed almost alive. He collapsed onto a bench, muscles aching, sweat dripping from his forehead. Every part of his body protested, but his mind refused to quit. The memory of what he had just endured still thrummed in his veins like electricity, reminding him of both how small and how capable he could be. Outside the chamber, the all-scribes whispered among themselves. "He cannot continue," one said, shaking her head. "Even our elite would collapse after one cycle. Too impossible." "No," another replied, eyes wide. "The human survived without breaking contact. It defies everything we know about endurance." Overheard their words. At first, a flicker of fear struck him. Maybe they're right, he thought. Maybe I am not strong enough for what comes next. But then he remembered the reason he was here. Earth depended on him, not for diplomacy, not for gifts or negotiations, but to show the universe that humanity was more than a small, insignificant planet. He sat quietly, feeling the exhaustion seep deeper into his bones. Doubt gnawed at him. Could he really face another cycle? Could he survive the pain, the energy, the judgment of thousands of eyes watching him? His stomach twisted, his throat dry, but he knew he couldn't leave. He wouldn't. Then the door opened and entered. Her violet scales shimmered in the soft light, her golden eyes warm yet serious. She approached him slowly, kneeling beside his bench. "You surprised us," she said softly, her voice carrying both admiration and caution. "Our records say no outsider has ever survived even one cycle without assistance, yet you completed it alone and with resolve." Tried to smile, but the fatigue weighed too heavily. I just didn't want to quit," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "If I fail now, it won't just be me, it'll be humanity." Tilted her head, considering him. "Humans carry pride in a way few species do. You fight for something bigger than yourself. That is rare. That is admirable." He felt a flicker of hope and courage spark inside him. Her words reminded him that this was not just about physical strength. The aliens valued spirit, determination, and heart, and he had both in abundance. "You can do the second cycle," she added gently. "But you must focus. The next trial will test not only your body, but your mind, your patience, your very will to endure." Nodded slowly. He forced his legs to rise, feeling the stiffness and soreness like weights he had to drag with him. "All right," he said quietly, though every muscle screamed in protest. "Let's see what comes next." Outside, the council had gathered again. Whispers of doubt and astonishment filled the hall. Some doubted humanity, others began to reconsider. If a single human could survive one cycle, what might he achieve with determination? As returned to the arena, he felt a mix of fear and resolve. The crystalline conduit awaited, its pulses steady but already more intense than before. The all spectators lined the arena, their eyes shining with expectation and curiosity. Could feel their judgment pressing down, but instead of shrinking under it, he straightened his shoulders. The second cycle would be harder. The energy waves would be stronger, the resonance more unpredictable. But he remembered words: "You are admired for trying, for enduring, for believing." And so, with trembling hands and a pounding heart, touched the conduit again. The first pulse struck him like a hammer, shaking him to the core. He stumbled slightly, caught himself, and drew a deep, steadying breath. He could do this. He had to. Humanity depended on him. They all watched in awe as he steadied himself, standing taller than he had moments ago. The whispers of doubt faded into silence, replaced by something new: anticipation. Could this human truly survive what no one else had? Clenched his teeth, feeling pain and fear mix into determination. Whatever came next, he would face it. Not as a lone human, not as a frightened outsider, but as a representative of an entire world, small, underestimated, but unbroken. And for the first time, a flicker of pride warmed him despite the exhaustion. "I may be small, but I will not quit. I will endure." The arena felt colder this time. The crystals glowed brighter, their pulses sharper and faster. Mercer stepped forward, every muscle aching from the first cycle. His body screamed in protest, but his mind forced him to stand tall. He could not afford weakness, not now. The entire human race had eyes on him, even if those eyes were millions of miles away. Waiting at the center was a all-warrior with scales that glimmered like molten metal. Her golden eyes were fierce, and her presence alone made his chest tighten. Unlike gave no comforting words. She simply nodded once, and the silence around them grew heavier. "The second cycle begins," the High Matron announced. "Endure, adapt, survive." The moment the resonance flowed, the arena shook. The crystal conduit thrummed violently, sending waves of energy through his body. This time, the pulse did not simply test his strength, it targeted his reflexes, his balance, and his focus. Each surge threw him off rhythm. He stumbled, almost losing his grip, but he adjusted quickly, steadying himself. The spectators leaned forward, their eyes widening. They whispered to each other, shocked that the human remained standing. "Impossible," one murmured. "Even seasoned all-warriors struggle with one wave. He endures without faltering." Felt the energy ripple through him, pulling at his muscles, twisting his focus, and flooding his mind with memories he would rather forget. Failures, regrets, times he had let people down. Each memory came as a sharp jolt, threatening to break him. His knees trembled, and for a moment he feared he would collapse. But then he remembered Earth, the small blue planet underestimated by the universe, the people who struggled every day just to survive and keep hope alive. The thought of them gave him strength. He straightened, gritting his teeth, and tightened his grip on the conduit. Pain, fear, and exhaustion became fuel instead of enemies. Halfway through the cycle, the resonance intensified. The waves slammed into him like storms, each pulse stronger than the last. His vision blurred, his heart raced. He felt every muscle strain to its limit, yet he did not let go. He adapted instinctively, bending with the energy, letting it flow through him rather than fighting against it. The all-crowd gasped, whispers grew louder. He adjusts mid-strike. No human could think so fast. He is extraordinary. The final surge of energy approached, a pulse so intense it could overwhelm even the strongest of all warriors. His body shook violently, sweat streaming down his face. Every nerve screamed, but he forced his focus inward, centering on the thought that had carried him this far. He would not quit. Not for himself, not for Earth, not for anyone watching. He planted his feet, gripped the conduit with every ounce of strength he had left, and let the pulse crash through him. Pain and fatigue threatened to topple him, but he endured. When the final wave faded, he sagged to one knee, trembling and soaked in sweat, but he had not released his hold. Approached him slowly, eyes wide with awe. She pressed her palm to her chest in a sign of respect, a gesture reserved for the most honorable warriors. "You have completed 2 cycles without release," she said softly. "No outsider has ever done this. No one expected it." Tried to smile through the exhaustion. "That's 2, he whispered, his voice hoarse but steady. The audience of aliens erupted in admiration. Whispers of disbelief transformed into murmurs of respect. Even the scribes frantically began noting down every detail of the human's endurance. Stepped forward, her eyes warm. "You've surpassed all expectation. Your people will be remembered for this," she said. "But the final cycle awaits. Are you ready?" Took a deep breath, ignoring the soreness, the fatigue, the shaking of his limbs. I have to be," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. "If humanity is to be respected, I have to finish this." The all-council watched silently, some with anticipation, others with disbelief. The second cycle was complete, but the hardest challenge, the final test, was yet to come. And as Mercer stood in the center of the glowing arena, trembling and exhausted, one thought burned brighter than all the pain. "I will endure. I will not quit. I will show them what humans are capable of." Mercer sat in the small chamber, his body trembling from the first 2 cycles. Every muscle ached, every joint protested, and yet his mind refused to rest. He could feel the exhaustion like a heavy weight pressing down on his chest, making each breath a conscious effort. The first 2 cycles had nearly broken him, but he had endured. The third would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Outside the chamber, the all-council gathered in hushed tones. The scribes whispered furiously, their pens scratching across crystal tablets. "No human should have survived 2 cycles, one said, shaking her head in disbelief. "And yet here he sits, preparing for the third. How is it possible?" "He carries something within him that we cannot measure," another replied. "Strength, will, spirit, perhaps all of it, but he is truly extraordinary." Overheard the words, and for the first time he allowed himself a flicker of pride. Despite the pain, despite the doubt, he had earned their respect. Even if he failed the 3rd cycle, he had already proven something vital, that humans were more than fragile beings, more than the small, overlooked species many assumed them to be. The door to the chamber slid open quietly and entered. Her violet scales glimmered in the soft light, and her golden eyes were gentle yet intense. She knelt beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have exceeded every expectation," she said softly. "Even the strongest all-warriors would struggle with what you have endured. The final cycle will challenge not just your body, but your mind and spirit. It will push you to the edge." Looked at her, his chest rising and falling rapidly. I don't know if I can," he admitted honestly. "I'm exhausted. My body feels like it's falling apart, and the thought of the third, it scares me." His gaze softened. "Fear is natural, even the bravest feel it. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it." He nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. Courage, that was what had carried him this far. Courage and determination, the human way of surviving the impossible. "Remember why you are here," she continued. "Not for yourself, not for glory. You carry the hopes of your world. You carry the truth of what humans are capable of. If you falter, Earth may be underestimated again. But if you endure, humanity will be seen in a new light. Closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath. Memories of his home planet filled his mind, vivid images of bustling cities, quiet forests, oceans stretching beyond the horizon, and people fighting every day to survive and thrive. He thought of friends, family, and strangers whose efforts went unnoticed. All of them depended, in a way, on him to succeed here in this alien arena. He opened his eyes, determination replacing fear. "I will do it," he said quietly but firmly. "Even if it's the hardest thing I've ever done, I will endure for Earth." Smiled faintly, a flicker of pride in her gaze. "Then prepare yourself. The High Matron awaits. Your final cycle will begin soon." Rose to his feet, every step a struggle against exhaustion. The path to the arena felt longer than before, as if the distance itself tested his will. The council watched silently, their expressions unreadable. Every whisper of doubt had vanished, replaced by anticipation and awe. The arena doors opened, revealing the glowing crystal conduit, its energy pulsing like a living heartbeat. This was it, the final trial. His hands shook as he approached, his body heavy with fatigue, yet his mind clear with purpose. The spectators leaned forward, sensing the gravity of the moment. He touched the conduit, and the familiar hum of energy surged through him. The first wave of resonance already threatened to overwhelm him, yet he gritted his teeth and focused. He was no longer just a human, he was a representative of his species. He could not fail. As the High Matron's voice echoed across the hall, commanding the cycle to begin, took a deep, steadying breath. Every pulse, every wave, every judgmental gaze would test him, but he knew one truth. No matter the pain, no matter the fear, he would not quit. And in that moment, standing alone in the center of the arena, trembling yet unbroken, he realized that endurance was more than physical. It was spirit. It was heart. And humans, this tiny, underestimated species, had both in abundance. With a final glance at, who gave him a subtle nod of encouragement, braced himself for the impossible. The third cycle was about to begin. Mercer stood in the center of the arena, every fiber of his being trembling from exhaustion. The first 2 cycles had drained him nearly to his limits. His muscles burned, his lungs ached, and sweat streamed down his face, but he could not falter now. The third cycle would not forgive weakness. Every pulse of the conduit would test him in ways even seasoned all-warriors had feared. The High Matron's voice resonated through the hall. The final cycle begins. Endure, adapt, survive. Immediately the conduit flared, sending a surge of energy rippling through his body. His knees buckled and he stumbled, but he clenched his teeth and gripped the crystalline beam with every ounce of remaining strength. Pain shot through his limbs like fire and his vision blurred. Every instinct screamed for him to release, to collapse, to give up, but he refused. He could feel the eyes of the All-Council on him, and beyond them the billions of humans watching from a tiny blue planet. He could not fail. The energy intensified, unlike anything had felt before. It seemed alive, probing his mind as well as his body. Memories flooded him, failures, losses, moments of shame, and for a terrifying moment he felt himself break from the pressure. He gritted his teeth and focused on a single thought: I will endure. I am human. I am not weak. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. Had no sense of time anymore. Each pulse of energy hit harder than the last. His arms trembled. His legs threatened to give way. His heart raced as if it might burst. And yet he adapted instinctively, letting the energy flow through him instead of against him. He bent, shifted, and centered himself with every surge. From the stands, the all-spectators whispered in disbelief. He cannot survive this. Impossible, no outsider could withstand it. Yet he stands, he endures. His vision blurred further. Sweat soaked him to the bone. His chest burned with each breath. But the thought of his planet, of everyone depending on him, anchored him. Every ounce of strength left in his body, every spark of determination, he poured into holding his grip on the conduit. Then the final wave approached. It was larger, sharper, a torrent of energy that threatened to shatter both body and mind. His legs shook violently, his arms quivered uncontrollably. Pain coursed through him like lightning. Every nerve screamed to stop, to release, to give in, but he refused. He clenched his jaw, drew a deep, shuddering breath, and let the energy crash through him. Time seemed to slow. His mind emptied, leaving only a single truth: I will not quit. The resonance pulsed, surged, and slammed into him one last time. His vision flashed with light, his muscles screamed in agony, yet he endured. When the energy finally faded, sagged to his knees, trembling uncontrollably, soaked in sweat, and every part of his body ached beyond words. For a moment he could not speak, could not move. And then he felt it, a subtle, almost imperceptible acknowledgement from the conduit itself, as if it recognized his endurance. The hall erupted into stunned silence, followed by murmurs of awe, and stepped forward, their eyes wide. The High Matron rose, her expression one of astonishment mixed with deep respect. "Human Mercer," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "you have done what no outsider has ever done, 3 cycles without breaking. You have shown endurance beyond measure, spirit beyond expectation. Humanity will be remembered for this day." Lowered his head, chest heaving. Exhaustion pressed down on him, threatening to collapse him entirely. But a quiet pride burned within him. He had done the impossible. Against all odds, in a world far from his own, he had proven that humans were not weak, not fragile, and not insignificant. Approached and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You have earned our respect, and more. Your people will be honored because of your courage." Managed a faint, exhausted smile. He could barely stand, but inside a warmth spread through him, a mix of pride, relief, and a deep sense of accomplishment. He had endured the impossible. And in that moment, he realized that strength was not only measured in muscle or stamina, but in heart, determination, and spirit. Humanity, small and underestimated, had just made its mark on a world that had doubted it. Mercer, trembling and spent, had become a symbol of human endurance, spirit, and the impossible made possible. The arena had fallen silent. Mercer, trembling and soaked in sweat, had survived the impossible, 3 cycles without faltering. The all spectators stared in awe, their whispers replaced by respectful murmurs. Some even bowed slightly, a gesture reserved for warriors and heroes. For the first time, the human was not an outsider in their eyes. He was a symbol of strength. Sank to one knee, exhaustion weighing him down, yet a quiet pride filled him from within. He had endured pain, fear, and doubt. Every part of him ached, every nerve screamed, but he had proven something greater than himself. Humanity, small and underestimated, had a heart and spirit that could rival the mightiest of alien races. Approached him, her violet scales shimmering softly in the glowing light of the arena. She knelt beside him, her golden eyes reflecting both warmth and admiration. "You have done what no one believed possible," she said softly. "You carry the endurance of your entire species. Your spirit has spoken louder than any weapon, any machine, any skill." Tried to smile, his lips trembling. I just did what I had to," he whispered. "I couldn't let them think humans were weak." Shook her head gently. "It was more than duty. It was courage, heart, and resolve. These qualities, they define a species more than strength or numbers, and your species has them in abundance." The High Matron rose from her seat, her presence commanding silence. Every all in the hall turned their gaze to the exhausted human at the center of the arena. "Mercer," she announced, her voice resonating with gravity, "you have achieved the unthinkable. You have faced what none before could, and you have endured. Humanity is no longer a species to be doubted. Today, you have ensured your people's respect across the stars." The hall erupted into applause, a mixture of reverence, astonishment, and celebration. Lowered his head, tears mixing with the sweat streaking his face. He had never imagined such recognition, especially from beings so different from his own kind. Yet here it was, the validation not only of his endurance but of all humans. As the crowd began to disperse, approached him, her normally fierce expression softened. "I doubted you at first," she admitted. "I did not believe a human could endure even a single cycle, but you have shown me the strength of your kind. I will speak of this day for the rest of my life." Managed a weak laugh, shaking his head. "I just kept going one step at a time." "You did more than go," added. "You have inspired us. You have shown that determination, heart, and courage can surpass expectations, overcome limits, and redefine possibilities. You are not only a human, you are a legend." For a moment, closed his eyes, letting the weight of what had just happened sink in. The pain of the cycles, the fear, the doubt, they all faded into a quiet echo. What remained was pride, hope, and a deep understanding. Humans, despite being small in the vast universe, had a spirit that could not be measured. The High Matron extended a ceremonial hand and rose with trembling limbs, meeting it. "You have carried your people's honor," she said solemnly. "Let this day mark the beginning of a new respect between our worlds. Humanity will be remembered not as weak, but as resilient, courageous, and unbroken." Looked out at the all spectators, their expressions of awe and respect a reflection of the impossible he had just achieved. He felt a warmth spread through him, not from the glow of the crystals, not from applause, but from a deeper place. The understanding that endurance, courage, and heart could leave a mark greater than any weapon, greater than any victory. As he left the arena, supported gently by, he knew something had changed, not just in the eyes of the all, but in himself. Humans were capable of far more than they believed, and if one human could endure the impossible, perhaps all humans could rise to meet challenges the universe thought they could not. And so Mercer, exhausted but unbroken, walked from the arena a hero, not merely for surviving the cycles, but for proving that humanity's heart and spirit were stronger than anyone, alien or human, could ever imagine.